Next from Chicago, our contributing correspondent Jeff Berkowitz talks with Dan Shoman, who's been an advisor to Barack Obama since the president served in the Illinois legislature. We'll hear Mr. Shoman's thoughts on the presidential election and where he thinks President Obama succeeded and where he thinks he's made mistakes. This runs about 30 minutes.
You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name. Politics is our game. Look, this is the show, folks, that Barack Obama appeared on 6 times from 2000 to 2004. It gave us some credibility, but mainly that's because we have as our guest today Dan Shoman, the man who worked with Barack Obama as a consultant and campaign manager for 9 years, from 1997 to 2006. And he will be working on the campaign to re-elect, right?
That's right, and I used to drive him up to the show when you were on Tower Road. So I was here several times, and I know he enjoyed doing your show.
And he's a good guy. We may agree with Barack, we may disagree with him, but I don't know anybody who really thinks he's not a good guy.
Well, people that ask that question, the answer is, I can't define somebody good or not, but Barack feels guilt. He has a conscience, and he feels guilt.
So, okay, if he has a conscience and he feels guilt, Dan Shoman, what went wrong with the Barack Obama presidency? Because clearly something happened. He's been president here for 3.5 years. He was supposed to be post-racial, post-political, right? I knew Barack, and you knew Barack, and partly why, look, let's be blunt. He was known as a non-scary black, okay? There are blacks who are in politics who are scary to whites, and there are whites in politics who are scary to blacks. Barack Obama transcended race. That's what's said. He transcended politics. Is there anybody now who thinks 3.5 years into the Barack Obama presidency that he transcends race, that Barack Obama transcends politics?
Well, I think he still has transcended race. I think if anything, you could argue that he has run a presidency that has been so non-racial oriented. So I think on that issue, he gets kudos. When it comes to the transcending politics, I think the economy has beaten him down. There are some areas that I think he could have done better, but he's been a victim of a vicious beating by the economy and by Republicans. And I go door to door. I've been door to door in the last year working on campaigns, and generally the sentiment is Obama has done okay, but they shouldn't beat him up so hard. I think that's what Americans think. So the question is, if the continuing Republican strategy over the next 6 months is to beat the heck out of Obama, and the same thing with Romney, is that going to be effective? I don't think so.
Well, but to be fair now, there are people who would say, you say that they don't want people beating up on him unfairly, okay? And when it comes to transcending politics, true, the economy has not gone well. May have even been much more difficult than he anticipated. Mm-hmm. But he did make promises. He did say in February 2009, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, Barack Obama said, look, I've got this $800 billion stimulus program.
Right.
I want you folks to pass it. He sent out Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid to pass it. Barack took hands off. He even let them shape it, and some would say to his detriment. But he said, pass this legislation, and unemployment won't exceed 8%. Did he say that?
Well, let me tell you what happened with the stimulus, and I think there are some weaknesses to the stimulus. On the clean energy side, the federal government is so restrictive.
Excuse me just for a second, Dan. You get plenty of time to explain, and I won't interrupt, but did he say that? Did he say in February of 2009, did President Obama say, pass the stimulus and unemployment won't exceed 8%?
As far as I remember, he said, pass the stimulus, it'll create this many jobs.
I thought he said
I don't remember
unemployment won't exceed 8%. Are you saying you just don't know, or you don't think he said that?
I don't remember.
Okay.
There's certain things I do remember.
Okay.
That's not one of them.
Fair enough.
But I will say that the stimulus package had some weaknesses, and let me tell you one of them. On the clean energy side, I think the environmentalists sold him that they could create these jobs. The problem is the federal government was so restrictive, on the different projects that they couldn't get funding. So the clean energy stuff didn't work enough. There wasn't enough vertical.
They couldn't get funding for what?
There was very little of the clean energy funding was released because of the restrictive federal standards.
By the EPA?
No, the EPA and the federal agencies, which is why it's so surprising
They're
about
his
Solyndra.
agencies.
But
he was the president of the United States.
But these
he
were his,
appointed people to EPA.
They were
He
his
appointed them to-
regulations. I mean, it's very difficult.
He couldn't get projects done because of his regulations.
I think you could say they didn't change the regulations enough when they did it. It's possible. I'm just saying I think that the clean energy thing didn't work the way
Couldn't
it was
he get
supposed to.
waivers? Couldn't he? I mean, he's president of the United States, and didn't he have a majority in the House and Senate when he was elected?
I'm not going to tell you why. I'm just going to say I don't think it created the number of jobs it should have. I think also they could have done more with vertical construction instead of just highway construction, because the trades, the labor trades, the unions have really suffered.
By vertical, you mean buildings going
The
up
hospitals,
as opposed to just roads.
hospitals, schools.
He must have paved every road from Wilmette to Los Angeles back to New York.
And that did help, but it didn't
well,
do
I don't
what,
know.
right.
Yes.
And so
Those
now
aren't what we call high-paying skilled jobs, right?
But the new stimulus he's trying to do is focused on
Infrastructure.
road infrastructure and police officers and cops
But he's
and
not.
firefighters.
He has no credibility now because he did say. I heard him say this, Dan. I heard him say in February 2009, passed the stimulus, unemployment was below 8%, it won't go above. They passed the stimulus, it went above 8%, went above 9%, went above 10%.
Right.
It is only now 3.5 years later, almost come down to 8%, not quite. Okay, I mean,
Well,
I had a guy, Nick Bogert. Do you know Nick Bogert?
No.
He's an MSNBC, NBC, currently freelance journalist. He was sitting here just last week in your chair. And I said, who wins, Obama or Romney? Nick Bogert, pretty fair. He's not somebody who people would say strongly right, strongly left. He said, tell me where unemployment will be. I said,
Right.
I'm guessing 8.1%. He said, if that happens, it's going to be tough for Barack Obama. So unemployment now went to 8.1, and I think last month it ticked up.
Right.
Instead of continuing to go down, it's gone up, I think, to 8.2. A small change, but that's important. As you know, in politics, the trend.
Right.
So my point is,
my
point is he didn't deliver on that. We've had much higher unemployment for the last 3.5 years. The recovery is much less robust than any other in recent history. You know, you want to compare to Bush in 2001 to 2003, stronger recovery.
Well,
you want to
but-
compare to Reagan, 81 to 83, stronger recovery. You want to compare to Clinton, 91 to 93, stronger recovery.
But you're
Barack Obama has the weakest recovery in recent
But
history.
you're ignoring, Jeff, the situation in the world around us. You know, part of the problem with America is we think we're an insular society.
So now we're going to blame the world around us?
Well, but the reason why Obama had that press conference on Friday was to talk about the issues in Europe. America is one of only many countries. It's far worse in Europe. And I've spent a lot of time in Europe. I do a lot of work in Eastern Europe.
Dan,
and let me tell
this
you,
is not the right strategy. I'm
not saying that
Dan,
I'm not employing a strategy.
But
I'm just telling you.
you know government. You've been in government.
Right, but you're calling
you
for
know politics.
You're calling for a robust recovery. The robust, it's different. It's different times now than in the past when we had robust recoveries.
Don't you think it's not the way to run for president? Forget whether it's right or wrong. Okay, I hate to say it, but put aside the truth for the moment. Let's just talk politics. Is it a good strategy to run for president to say, you know what, folks, things have been worse than I anticipated,
No.
and the world has a mess, and
Right.
so that's why I didn't do what I said, but go ahead and elect me anyway, because somehow life will be different. People say, well, okay, if the world is the problem and you couldn't deal with it, you couldn't cope, we're not going to make you president of the United States again. Am I right?
Yeah, but
that's a wrong strategy.
No,
Why is he doing that?
He needs to articulate.
Do I have to tell everybody how to do things here? Ben, come on. We'll talk with Ben LeBeau.
Now, do I get to answer the question?
Yes, go ahead, sorry.
He needs to articulate a clear strategy going forward. I think they're saying that about Romney, too. I think both of them in the next 5-6 months have to articulate a clear strategy or they will lose. And I think that him running against Bain Capital may be a part of it, or Romney running against Obama's record, but they have to articulate what's going to happen in the
No, but it
next
was the
4
wrong
years.
strategy. Bill Clinton didn't agree with it.
Right, I heard he didn't agree.
Cory Booker didn't agree with it.
Right, I heard he didn't
Virtually
agree.
nobody agreed with it. I mean, did David Axelrod agree with
it's
it?
a part. It's a part of the strategy. It's not the whole strategy.
Do you
and
think
Obama has to have a good economic plan coming forward in the next 6 months that people believe and that makes sense.
But isn't the problem is he's not running for president. This is not 2008. It was fine to have a good plan in the fall of 2008.
But he is running for president.
No, but he's running for re-election.
Correct.
He has to explain what went wrong. I started that question. Let me ask you again.
Yes.
What went wrong with the Obama presidency?
What went wrong is a much worse economy than expected, an international economic crisis of nuclear proportions, the worst it's been in my lifetime. I don't know about your lifetime. You're just a couple of years older than me, but the worst it's ever been. A focus on healthcare in the first 2 years, which was his strategy, which was his campaign platform, and was the #1 issue 6 years ago.
Was that a mistake to focus on healthcare?
It wasn't, because 6 years ago it was the #1 issue in this
country.
country.
There are people who tell me, and there have been a spate of books written about, some good, some not so good, written about the Obama presidency.
Yes, there have been
There's
some good
some
ones.
who suggest that this was the girl, so to speak. This was Valerie Jarrett, this was Michelle Obama, this was others saying, you know what, healthcare is the most important thing.
But it was the most important
thing. There
thing.
were advisors, I think, like Larry Summers, who would probably say focus on the economy. I wasn't there. I've only read about some of this. Barack Obama is the decision maker, okay, as Bush would say. George W. Bush was the decision maker. Barack Obama's the decision maker. Did he make the wrong decision? Should he have, in the first 2 years, not focused on healthcare, but focused on the economy?
No, and here's why. 6 years ago, healthcare was the #1 issue, especially in a Democratic primary. That's #1. Number 2 is he knew healthcare.
6 years ago, in 2006.
Yes, and when he started running. Number 2, he knew healthcare. He was a healthcare leader in the state Senate when I worked with him, and the U.S. Senate. So he understood the implications of Medicaid, the implications of health insurance, the complexities of healthcare. Number 3, he lived and worked in a very urban area where there's a healthcare crisis in America, whether it's obesity, whether it's diabetes, things like this in the black community. So he understood the issue. So I think he focused on an issue, and he threw that pledge. To blame him for that, little did he know that the economy would slip so quickly, but a lot of which happened during Bush.
Is he a big enough guy to say possibly he made a mistake? You've given all the reasons why it was rational.
Is he a big enough guy to say?
You gave all the reasons, why it was rational, and I think you made a cogent, rational argument for why it was rational for Barack Obama to make the decision he made. But as it turned out, as you said, the economy was in worse shape than he anticipated.
Right.
The hill to climb was higher than he anticipated. Did he make a mistake in the sense that if he had focused on the economy, he might have realized earlier the hurdles he was facing? And number 2, should he have stayed more involved?
What's the point?
He outsourced, everybody says this, he outsourced the stimulus to Harry Reid and to Nancy Pelosi. They did a lot of their social priorities, their constituent spending, their patronage. Not so much stimulus, a lot of payback for their friends. If Obama had said,
that's your opinion.
Well, that not just my opinion. A lot of people say this. And the point is, look, I know Barack Obama. In a way, it's not blaming Barack. Maybe the president should outsource things like that. Maybe he has to delegate. I'm not saying that's wrong.
But why are you so dwelling on whether he made a mistake or not?
Because I think
you're saying it's a mistake in judgment?
Yeah, I'm saying maybe the way to do it. I'm not telling you how to do your business. Again, you do government, you do politics, you travel. You're the one who traveled 5,000 miles with Barack from 1997 to 2006. I don't know anybody else who did that. You know Barack, but I thought I know him. You know him much better than I do.
Okay.
Probably better than anybody else, okay?
Right.
So knowing that, maybe you would be the person to talk with him and say, you know what, the American public, they believe in a second chance, a second act. If you go to them and you say, I made a mistake. Yes, the world is a problem. Yes, Europe is a problem. Yes, Spain is a problem and all those, but I made a mistake. I should have focused on the economy. You've got my attention now. Here's what we're going to do.
I think he's done that.
I haven't heard him say.
He said, "I'm focused on the economy." But I don't see the point in doing that, Jeff.
Well, you know,
then you just
they
jump
asked
on him
Bush.
and say,
They always asked Bush when he was president, "Do you ever say you made a mistake?" And he never would.
Because you know why? Because the America doesn't reward people for being honest when it comes to the media. You have to say.
Maybe they do. Maybe you're wrong on that, Dan. I reward people for being honest.
But he, in essence, did say that he probably should have done it quicker, focused on the economy quicker. He's made that point. I think he said that many a time, and I'll find you the quotes. That's almost the same as
saying I made a mistake.
So why not just say it cleanly? But why are you dwelling on the mistake aspect?
Because it's a way of
we're trying to look forward.
Yeah, because it's a way of saying here's what I did wrong, and here's what I'm going to do in the future.
But Jeff, you're missing some points. You're missing points about the auto industry. He's done a great job on the auto industry. A lot of private sector jobs have been created.
That's what they call crony capitalism.
Well, I mean,
You know about crony capitalism,
For GM, Ford, Chrysler, how can you say he has done a good job on the auto
Because
industry?
there are people who say
They're one of the few
they
industries
went into
that-
bankruptcy, but it was a structured bankruptcy.
Right.
And a lot of Barack Obama's friends in labor were rewarded in the management of GM.
Sure.
And people say crony capitalism, he should have let them go into bankruptcy, let them come
That's
out.
what Mitt Romney wanted, right?
No, not let them go and like, goodbye, we hope you work it out. Go through bankruptcy. Don't restructure to help your friends, the unions. Say, Barack Obama, I want you folks going into bankruptcy. I want you coming out. I believe in you. I think you can become a strong company, but I'm going to take hands off here because I don't want to get people saying, I'm doing this for my friends. I'm doing it for Detroit. I'm doing it for Los Angeles.
Okay.
I'm doing it for
But
you.
let me make
You
this
see the
point-
difference?
Yeah, but let me make this point to all you people that have those positions. When the airline industries went into bankruptcy and they created a two-tier pension system and they screwed the future workers, do we have a better airline industry, Jeff? Can you tell me that
we do have a better
the air service is better than it was before?
It is better than
We're
it was
paying
30
more
years.
money.
No, we're not
It's a
paying more money.
monopolized
It's
process.
not a
Yes, it
monopoly.
is. In
It's
the last 5
rampant
years, I can
competition.
submit my bills. The point is,
No. Anybody
the
who
point is
studied
we-
this, Dan, anybody who studied this, including Alfred Kahn.
We're making the best
Alfred
cars
Kahn
in
was
the
a guy,
world.
excuse me, but Alfred Kahn was a guy who led deregulation of the airlines under who? Under Carter in 1979.
That's right, it was under-
Alfred Kahn is no right winger. He's basically a Democrat.
But
We
you
had
t-
over the last 30 years, if you track this, Dan, if you track it, 30 years, airline rates have come down considerably, real rates. People with low incomes can now travel and fly much more than they could before.
They went down, and now they went shooting way back up
Not
in the
now.
last
No,
year.
they are still
And
lower.
not only that, there's a
They are still
monopoly, and
lower,
there's much
and there's
less
not a
flights.
monopoly. There are all sorts of airlines coming in constantly. They go out, they come in, competition. If we had that in the school system, let's change the topic a little bit. If we had that in the school system, that kind of competition, schools failing and
We're
going
starting
out
to
of
have
business.
that with charter schools. We're having a lot more,
Yeah.
and I do work in the charter. I understand the charter school area, and I do work, and I think there is more competition.
How many more charter schools do we have 3.5 years later?
There's
due
a lot in
excuse me,
Chicago.
due to the Barack Obama presidency. Because here's a man who said he supported charter schools. He said this
And I think in
sitting
the
right here where you're
legislature,
sitting.
and I think in the legislature he did.
And so the question is, as President of the United States, talk about leadership, how many more charter schools do we have? How many more low-income people have choices that they wouldn't otherwise have? Because Barack Obama has led the way in leadership for more charter schools around the country.
Well, let me tell you one thing that he is doing, and that is you talk about education. And one of the big issues coming up in the next couple of weeks is trying to save the student loan issue. And we have middle-class people in your viewing area that are strangled.
It's the poor
that
people
are
I
dying.
want to help. The middle
No,
class,
it's the middle-class
to
people that are
paraphrase-
dying.
To paraphrase Mitt Romney, the middle-class people and the high-income people can take care of themselves. Dan,
When you're out
the
of a
people-
job and you're trying to pay,
the people
you're
who
trying to pay.
who need help the most, you should know this. The people who need help the most are people who are locked into failing public schools, who are learning how to read, write, and do math.
And that's why we've been.
And I'm going to help a guy who can read, write, and do math, but he doesn't want to pay 8%. He should only pay 4%. That's the guy who needs the help?
Because the way
Give me a break.
the
Who cares about the poor people? I got to be the guy?
Look, the problem
Barack
is,
Obama and Dan Shoman don't care about poor people? I got to be the guy?
you know, I think if
Dan.
are you defending raising the student loan rates? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm doing what Mitt Romney
doing-
should do and say, you know, if you care about helping low-income people, if you care about helping minorities, when we help those people in the city of Chicago who are in failing public schools, 1 out of every 2 kids, when we help people who are like at Dodge School, they're reading at 10% of the kids are learning how to read, when we take care of all of those, Dan, okay? We're triaging the system.
Right.
When we give school choice, when we don't close the schools as Barack Obama and Arnie Duncan did in D.C., when they had school vouchers and 7,500 kids, or I don't know how many, were getting $7,500 per kid per year, and they were doing well, and there were African Americans and other minorities who were being
Right.
helped. When we help all of those people and it's done, then I'll start turning to that poor guy. You know, it's like that woman at Georgetown Law School who complained
I
and
went to
moaned.
Georgetown.
Yeah, because she couldn't get birth control pills paid for by somebody else. Here's a woman who's going to be making $150,000 next year, and she wants the Constitution of the United States, the First Amendment, ripped up. Kind of ironic for a law student at Georgetown, so she can get free birth control pills. And Dan,
Now you're sounding like a right-wing conservative, Jeff.
no, I'm sounding like he cares about poor people. Do I care more about this woman at Georgetown getting free birth control pills or do I care more about the kids in the city of Chicago, in Detroit,
But that
in New
wasn't
York
the
City?
issue.
And no, that is the issue.
The issue there was the
I only
Catholic.
have so
I thought
much.
the issue was
I only have so much time if I'm president of the United States. If I'm Barack Obama and I'm Dan Shoman, I can put my time into helping the Georgetown woman who wants to get free birth control pills and is going to be making $150,000 a year next year, or I can help the kids in the city of Chicago who are learning how to read, write, do math, who've got one parent, who've got gangs shooting around them. Where should my time go, Dan?
Well, I think that's
the Georgetown woman or the kids who are impoverished? I'm going with the kids
when
who
you're
are
presenting that
impoverished.
option, what is Mitt Romney's plan for the inner city?
I hope it's school choice, school vouchers. I hope it's charter
and school
schools.
choice alone will not solve our
It's a
societal
damn
ills.
good start. It's a damn good
If
start.
you think that's going to solve if the kids don't have enough food to go to school.
Right
and
now, we've
they
been
have
giving them
empty
food for the
stomachs.
last 20 years, but
We have a
we've been
record
putting them
number-
in failing schools. So let's try giving them food. And there's inconsistent, Dan.
Look, I'm for
you can
school-
have vouchers and give kids
I am
food.
for school choice. I think that I think the charter
School
schools
vouchers,
are good.
school
I'm not
choice?
necessarily for vouchers, but I
Because
think
you know, Dan,
charter-
you know in your heart they're right, but you can't do it. Barack Obama said here in June 27, 2002, when not in that chair, but not in the studio, because we were in Winnetka, as you know, because you helped get him there.
Yes, correct.
What did he say? He said, Jeff, I will do anything. I will do anything that will improve the quality of education for the kids in the inner city. He said, those conditions are intolerable. And I said, even school vouchers, school choice. And you know what he said, Dan? He said, everything has to be on the table. A year later, I asked him when he was now a declared candidate for the U.S. Senate in the Democratic primary.
What he thought about that.
And then he said, you know, Jeff, I'm against school vouchers. It was the saddest moment of my life to see Barack Obama say something that wasn't true, because I could have played him that tape as he said.
Well, I don't remember, but you can play me the tape afterwards.
Okay, but you see the point? Barack Obama was Richard Nixon, who went to China. Barack Obama, biracial, transcended politics, transcended race, could have said to the unions, I'm sorry, I can't support you on this one. We're going to have school vouchers, school choice, because I care so much about the kids in the city of Chicago who aren't learning to read and write. And you know, it's not too late. It's not too late, Dan. He's president at least for, 6 more months, 8 more months, and he might be president.
you just
he
told
might
me-
be president for the next 4 years.
You just told me the reason why the Republicans aren't going to give him any passage of any bills because he has no credibility. Their purpose of not passing any of his current stimulus package is because they don't want the economy to improve before
Challenge
the
him,
election.
Dan,
That is what
challenge them.
people don't like.
Dan,
People
challenge
don't
him.
like
If
that.
he came out with school voucher, school choice legislation, proposed legislation, I would like to see the Republican who stood up and said, I oppose that. Because you know what? I'd be on that guy's ass every day of the week.
But is that going to create jobs right now?
Yeah.
I mean, because then
Yeah.
they would say the media would criticize them for not creating jobs.
Dan, people would be then teaching, people who could teach in schools who aren't certified, but who, as you know, have a history major, a math major, all sorts of new jobs. In fact, teacher jobs.
Right.
Barack Obama wants to help
Well,
teachers.
he had a lot of.
This would be teacher jobs.
Obama had some
okay?
innovative education stuff. Race to the Top, which was a
Yeah,
program.
It didn't work, Dan.
Well,
I hate to say it didn't work.
And then some of the other programs were cut by the Republicans.
Okay.
So they had a lot of other
Dan,
education
don't
stuff.
whine. The Republicans play politics. I understand that.
Yes.
I'm fair and balanced here. I'm not here to defend Republicans. I'm not here to defend anybody. Don't whine. Deal with the situation. Take up my challenge. Have Barack Obama. I know you talk with him. I know you can say, this would startle people. Barack
Right.
Obama is taking
for
on the
vouchers.
unions. He's coming out for school voucher, school choice. That would get their attention. He's still not going to neglect the economy. He's going to look for free market ways to boost the economy. I'm trying to tell you, let Barack Obama be Barack Obama. That's all I'm saying.
I was 100% convinced that a voucher-only system would work. School choice works. Does
you're
have
forcing me to do
does
it.
have its benefits. Milton Friedman. There we go.
We'll see when we get there. Milton Friedman. Okay.
Capitalism and
and freedom.
yes.
This man proposed vouchers, I think, in 1952, maybe 1962, 50 to 60 years ago. They work. They worked in D.C. They worked in Cleveland. They work in Florida. They work in Milwaukee. You want to read this book?
They work
Dan?
in Milwaukee?
You want to work? Yes, they
The
do.
vouchers, the public
Yes.
education system?
It's still going. They're
Are we
still,
going
they're
to
trying-
talk about the Wisconsin
have you read that book?
I have not read it, but I will.
You have not? You
I will
didn't read
get
it in
my
high
own
school?
copy. I read the other one, Free to Choose.
You read Free to Choose? You read Milton Friedman's Free to Choose in high
Yes.
school? What was that high school?
It's called Jesuit College Prep in Dallas,
It's a good
Texas.
school. It's a good school.
It was. It was
Send
good.
them money, everybody.
Wait,
Hear it?
since you brought up
Where's that? What's the
Milwaukee,
name of the school?
why don't we talk about Wisconsin?
Okay.
If the voucher system.
Wait a second, but you took the book. You're going to read it, right?
If you want me to take it, I will.
You'll
But
read
I
it?
can buy it on my own copy
Okay.
if you want.
You'll do it and you'll give us a book report? Did you know that Milton Friedman suggested and proposed and sort of invented school vouchers in 1962? Did you know that?
That's fine. Let's talk about Milwaukee, though.
No, but did you know that he did that?
Yes.
Okay. And you're going to think about it. You'll give it a fair shot.
I will.
Because you are somebody I respect.
I will read the book.
Because you give ideas a fair shot.
If you want me to read the book, I will read the book.
Okay.
But let me talk about Milwaukee.
Sure.
This relates to Wisconsin. One of the reasons why
we only got about 10 minutes left, so we can do it. It's your nickel.
I want to be critical of the Republican or the Democratic candidate in the recall election. The mayor of Milwaukee, Tom Barrett, did not do a good job of taking care of his city and the African American community. 30% unemployment among blacks. Loss of factory jobs. Yes. And so
he was not a good candidate for governor.
The point is
because
the
he was
voucher
not a good
system,
mayor of Milwaukee.
the voucher system is not working in Milwaukee. The public schools are terrible.
Oh, no,
the
no.
black population.
No, the voucher system is working fine.
They're not preparing black students.
The voucher system, no.
They're not preparing
what
black
evidence
students.
What evidence do you have that the voucher system is not working?
30% black unemployment.
No, that you can't blame that on vouchers.
Well, then, but you're saying this is going to create an economic.
It's a very small. It's a very small, and they're cutting back. The Democrats and the teachers unions are cutting back on the program.
Correct. But
to the extent the program exists, to the extent it's allowed to compete, it is working.
It's gotten worse and worse in Milwaukee. The economic
Milwaukee has,
situation.
but not the vouchers have gotten better and better.
But my point is, it's not solving societal ills.
It can't, because you only have 5 or 10% of the kids. Look, Dan.
I'm criticizing a Democrat here. You wanted me to give. I'm trying to be fair.
But criticize the Democrat for not expanding the school voucher program. If you want to criticize the Democrat for doing that, don't blame a program that hits 10% of the kids and say it didn't cure everything for the 90 other percent that it doesn't hit. You see the point?
Okay. You wanted to move on.
All right. We do have to move on.
Go ahead.
We're going to continue to speak as the credits roll, but I very much want to thank our guest, Dan Shoman. Dan, thank you so much for coming out here.
I was glad to be here. Thank you.
We didn't have enough time.
Are we done?
Nope, we still got a few more minutes left, so let's just keep going. Let's just hit foreign issues here. Do they matter? Does Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, does it matter in the election?
Probably, I don't think so right now.
It's the economy stupid.
It should matter, but I think
it's the economy stupid.
Pretty much.
Barack Obama is going to win this.
I think foreign issues matter as it affects the economy.
Barack Obama will win this or lose this depending on whether he can persuade people. He kept, as he's saying, things from getting worse than they would have been if he didn't have his stimulus program, his bailout program, and if he can persuade people he's got some insights to the next 4 years as to how to turn this economy around. If he can persuade people, he can do a better job than Mitt Romney.
Well, they affect the economy.
This is a referendum on Barack Obama, right?
Right, but they affect the
referendum on Barack Obama. Do
you
agree with that?
Yes.
David Axelrod would agree with me on that, right?
I think it's a referendum on Barack Obama.
Would he agree with me on that?
But I think they're going to try to run, I think the referendum on Mitt Romney is applicable and is a factor. It's not just a referendum on Obama, it's also a referendum on Romney.
You can't turn it around. It is a referendum. If people
if
think Barack's not doing well, then the next question they ask, can Romney do better? But the first question, the threshold question, is Barack doing well? Because if you can get them to answer yes, they never think about Mitt.
Correct. If the economy was booming and he had a yes, then that wouldn't be the issue.
They
it
say
is a referendum on Obama.
And he's losing that. Now they say, can Mitt do better?
That's your opinion.
You're watching the Illinois Channel, an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.